past few years, game developers have been pushing modern hardware to its absolute limit. As a result, we're now seeing upcoming games with insanely detailed worlds, brutal combat, and cinematic visuals that feel more lifelike than ever before. So make sure you stick around, because these are the 20 most brutal upcoming games ever revealed. The Sinking City 2 looks like a massive step up from the first game, especially now that Frogwares is fully leaning into survival horror instead of mainly detective gameplay. The sequel moves the story to a flooded version of Arkham during the 1920s, where streets are underwater and eldritch creatures are taking over the city. You play as a private investigator trapped in the middle of the disaster while trying to uncover what's happening beneath the city. Unlike the first game, survival itself feels like the main focus now. Ammo is limited, and combat now play a much bigger role, almost giving the game a Resident Evil-style structure while still keeping Lovecraftian investigation elements in the background. The city itself becomes part of the horror, with flooded areas forcing players to move carefully through dark interiors and unstable environments. Built in Unreal Engine 5, the atmosphere already looks far more detailed and immersive than the original game.
You were gone, and I tried to bring you back, but I failed.
Calvin! No!
Abnormal. Turn around, real slow.
Calvin, I assure you, all is well.
How are you? The worms only inhabit the dead. Faye?
Let me touch you. Don't leave me.
I have poured every waking moment since the train. Every ounce of my soul into bringing you back. It's taken everything I have.
So, this gauntlet is for you. You pop this on, you get the power of the Oni, and you'll be back topside.
The power of the Oni is all that's sustaining your life. That's an Oni gauntlet.
Musashi! Gungrave! This thing's made me so damn strong.
Sashi, I cannot apologize enough for dragging you down this path against your will.
If I take this gauntlet off, I'll be a bloody mess on the floor anyway.
This isn't what you promised, Gauntlet.
I'm glad you're unharmed.
Who? What?
Onimusha Way of the Sword finally brings the legendary samurai horror series back after years of silence, and Capcom is clearly treating this as a major return for the franchise. The game takes place in a dark fantasy version of Kyoto during the Edo period, where demonic creatures known as Genma have started taking over the city. You play as a wandering samurai carrying the Oni Gauntlet, a powerful artifact that allows him to absorb souls and fight against supernatural enemies. Instead of focusing on massive open-world exploration, the game leans into cinematic sword combat, tense encounters, and atmospheric environments filled with demons and corrupted humans. Gameplay revolves around precise sword fighting, parries, and brutal close-range combat. Capcom also appears to be keeping classic Onimusha mechanics like soul absorption, while modernizing the movement, animations, and combat flow for current hardware. Project Spectrum already feels different from most extraction shooters because it mixes military combat with psychological horror and monster hunting. The game takes place inside mysterious ember zones where reality has become unstable and dangerous creatures roam alongside enemy players. You play as an operator entering these zones to recover valuable resources and survive long enough to escape. The problem is that you're not just fighting other squads. Supernatural threats can appear at any moment, turning matches into complete chaos. One mechanic that immediately caught attention online is the Executioner system, where one player can control a terrifying monster and hunt everyone else in the match. That twist creates a very different kind of tension, because the danger constantly shifts between tactical gunfights and survival horror.
sometimes loss can birth beasts and bury truths.
Lack of understanding to push what we don't know when something should be left alone.
There's nothing we can do. There is no end.
Retrieval instantly grabbed attention because of how cinematic and realistic it looks. The game blends sci-fi horror with heavy story-driven exploration, and a lot of people immediately compared its atmosphere to Dead Space and the Callisto Protocol. The story takes place on a distant planet called Ryhalion, where a research mission suddenly disappears. You play as Hannah Loesch, a commander sent to investigate what happened to the missing crew, but the deeper the mission goes, the more disturbing the situation becomes. Gameplay focuses on exploration, puzzle solving, and third-person combat inside dark facilities and alien environments. The game also puts a lot of emphasis on realism, with detailed animations, cinematic camera work, and environmental storytelling designed to make the world feel tense. Gungrave, G.O.R.E, Blood Heat brings back the over-the-top anime-style action the series is known for. But this new entry looks even faster and more chaotic than before. The series has always been about style and absurd action, and Blood Heat seems fully committed to that identity. Gameplay is built around aggressive third-person shooting, close-range destruction, stylish finishers, and keeping combat flowing without stopping. Instead of tactical gunplay, the focus is pure momentum, destroying enemies as creatively and brutally as possible while chaining attacks together. You play as Grave once again, the undead gunslinger known for walking straight through entire armies while barely slowing down. The story continues the franchise's mix of revenge, crime syndicates, and supernatural powers, but the real focus is clearly the combat. Metro 2039 already looks way darker and more intense than most modern shooters out there. The series is finally heading back into the underground tunnels beneath Moscow, bringing back the claustrophobic survival atmosphere that fans missed after Metro Exodus. This time, the story follows a new character known as the Stranger, a man forced back into the Metro while the underground is being controlled by a brutal regime called the Reich. Instead of huge open landscapes, the game focuses more on dense environments, tight corridors, abandoned stations, and psychological tension. Gameplay keeps the classic Metro formula of survival, stealth, scavenging, and limited resources. Ammo is scarce, filters matter again, and every encounter looks dangerous instead of action-heavy. 4A Games also seems to be pushing horror elements harder this time, especially with the lighting and creature design shown so far. The War of the Worlds Siberia has one of the coolest settings we've seen in a while. Instead of using the usual modern sci-fi approach, the game reimagines War of the Worlds inside an alternate version of the Russian Empire, where giant Martian machines invade during a snowy historical setting. You play as a student trying to survive the invasion while traveling across collapsing cities and frozen landscapes towards Siberia. The giant tripods look terrifying in motion, especially because the game presents them with a grounded, cinematic style instead of over-the-top action. Gameplay mixes third-person shooting, stealth, exploration, and story-driven sequences. Weapons are mostly old rifles and revolvers, which makes every fight feel desperate because human technology clearly can't compete with the alien machines.
Воцарился хаос. Итак, господин нигилист, почему вы столь настойчивы в своем стремлении убить меня?
Моя семья умерла с голоду, пока ваша плясала на балах. Мы мечтали уничтожить старый мир, и он был уничтожен, только не нами.
BrokenLore Don't Watch immediately stands out because it doesn't look like a normal horror game at all. The entire game feels distorted on purpose, mixing internet horror, psychological tension, and surreal visuals in a way that's clearly trying to mess with the player's mind. The game is part of the BrokenLore series from Serafini Productions, and this entry focuses heavily on paranoia and isolation. You play as a young man trapped inside a tiny apartment while strange entities and disturbing hallucinations slowly take over his reality. Gameplay is built around exploration, environmental storytelling, and psychological horror sequences that constantly blur the line between reality and illusion. The apartment itself changes over time, and the game plays with perspective, sound, and visual distortion to keep players uncomfortable.
お前正気か。
私の何がいけないの？あのクソ薬のせいで。
優しい声が欲しかっただけなのに。
Exiledge feels like the kind of action game designed to make every fight look cool. The moment gameplay showed up, people immediately noticed the speed, flashy combat, and futuristic world design that gives the whole game a very stylish sci-fi anime feel. Gameplay mixes third-person shooting with melee combat, letting players chain sword attacks, gunfire, dodges, and movement abilities together during fast-paced battles. Boss fights also seem to play a major role, with huge cinematic encounters built around mobility and aggressive combat flow. The story takes place in a distant future, where humanity survives on giant ocean structures after a global disaster changed the planet. You play as Alter, a young fighter trying to uncover secrets connected to the world's collapse, alongside a mysterious girl named Zora. Jinyiwei is another big Chinese action RPG that's starting to get serious attention online, especially after the first gameplay reveal. Originally known as Project Jinyiwei, the game mixes martial arts combat, stealth, parkour, and time manipulation inside a dark Ming Dynasty setting. The story follows an ordinary boatman who ends up infiltrating the Jinyiwei, the feared imperial guards of the Ming Dynasty, while secretly working as an undercover agent for the black market. Gameplay looks heavily inspired by wuxia films, with rooftop parkour, wall running, stealth assassinations, counters, and fast sword combat all blended together. One of the more interesting mechanics is a deduction and time rewind system that lets players revisit events and approach situations differently, almost like mixing Assassin's Creed with Prince of Persia.
个门拦得住吗？北镇抚司办案。
Directorate Novitiate already feels like one of the most unique RPGs coming out right now, simply because of its setting. The game takes place in an alternate version of 2006 Los Angeles, where magic exists beneath the surface of everyday life and criminal syndicates secretly control the supernatural world. You play as Kana Luna, also known as Mercury, a young woman pulled into this hidden underworld while trying to keep her normal life from falling apart. By day, she's dealing with friends, relationships, and personal problems. But at night, she becomes a magical enforcer, hunting supernatural threats and investigating a serial killer tied to the occult world. Gameplay mixes third-person shooting with magic abilities, stylish gun-kata combat, and RPG progression systems. You can combine spells, gunplay, movement abilities, and supernatural powers together during combat, while story choices also affect relationships, alliances, and how Mercury's journey unfolds.
Show me what a good, loyal dog you are.
This was your mess to prevent!
Show me what you got, love.
Reverse Collapse. F already looks like one of the most ambitious anime-style shooters currently in development. Set in the Girls' Frontline universe, the game throws players into a brutal sci-fi future where humanity is close to extinction after wars, contamination, and strange space-time anomalies begin tearing the world apart. The game follows a group known as the Gifted, fighters sent into dangerous alternate dimensions filled with biomechanical threats and unknown entities in search of hope for humanity's survival. Gameplay focuses on fast third-person combat built with Unreal Engine 5. Early footage showed intense firefights, large enemy encounters, futuristic weapons, and cinematic environments that immediately reminded a lot of players online of games like Helldivers and Death Stranding. Cinder City looks like one of those games trying to go way bigger than people expected. Set in a destroyed, futuristic version of Seoul, the game throws players into a massive city filled with zombies, giant mechs, armed factions, and collapsing infrastructure. The world already has that chaotic, everything is falling apart at once feeling. The game is being developed by Big Fire Games under NCSoft, and one thing people immediately noticed was the scale. The maps are built around real Seoul locations, with huge urban environments designed for both close-quarter fights and long-range combat across rooftops and ruined streets. Gameplay mixes third-person shooting with tactical movement, vehicles, jetpacks, and large-scale battles against both infected enemies and massive mechanical threats. Early footage also showed players moving through the city using bikes and mechs while switching between fast action and heavier combat encounters. Artificial Detective immediately grabbed attention because of its world design. The game takes place in a retro-futuristic decopunk city where humans have mysteriously disappeared and rogue machines now control everything. Gameplay mixes third-person shooting, hacking, stealth, and environmental interaction. Instead of approaching fights one way, players can sneak through encounters, manipulate the environment with electricity and magnets, or go fully aggressive during combat. The game also uses semi-open sandbox areas connected through a flying streetcar system that lets players move between different districts of the city. You play as AD-2846, a robot detective trying to uncover what happened to humanity. Alongside a military robo-dog named DAWG and a human girl called Mowgli, you explore different districts across the city while dealing with violent machines, strange conspiracies, and fragmented memories.
What the f...
Hold on, kid!
Subnautica 2 already feels like one of the biggest survival games people can't stop talking about right now. The first game created that terrifying feeling of being completely alone in an alien ocean, and now the sequel is coming back with a much larger scale, new creatures, and a brand new underwater world to explore. Gameplay still revolves around exploration, crafting, resource management, and surviving against creatures that get more terrifying the deeper you dive. Early footage already showed massive new leviathans, dynamic underwater environments, and much more detailed world interaction built in Unreal Engine 5. A huge reason the hype is so massive is because almost nobody else makes survival games with this kind of atmosphere. Subnautica has always been less about combat and more about fear of the unknown. That feeling of hearing something huge moving somewhere in the dark water below you. Last Sentinel instantly caught people's attention because of its futuristic Tokyo setting and cinematic presentation. The game takes place in a heavily surveilled version of the city, where advanced technology, corruption, and social collapse all exist side by side. From the very first reveal, the atmosphere alone gave off strong cyberpunk movie vibes. The project is being developed by Lightspeed LA, a studio formed by former Rockstar Games veteran Steve C. Martin. That's one reason so many people started paying attention early, especially after seeing the level of detail shown in the reveal trailer. Right now, official gameplay details are still limited, but the game is confirmed to be a narrative-driven action project built around a large, open-world version of Tokyo. The reveal focused more on world-building, cinematic direction, and the social themes behind the city, rather than showing actual combat systems.
Follow me.
Koshmar, The Last Reverie feels less like a normal horror game and more like stepping into a nightmare you can't wake up from. The entire world is built around surreal dream imagery inspired by Slavic folklore, where giant, twisted creatures, abandoned villages, and impossible landscapes constantly make the game feel unsettling. Gameplay blends first-person exploration, puzzle solving, and survival mechanics inside semi-open environments filled with hidden paths and strange encounters. The developers also confirmed that enemy behavior adapts to the player, which adds another layer of unpredictability while exploring the dream world. The story follows a man trapped inside a mysterious dream realm while searching for answers connected to his past. Instead of relying on loud horror moments, the game focuses heavily on atmosphere and psychological tension, making players question what's real and what isn't the deeper they go. Blackwood immediately stands out because of how grounded and uncomfortable it feels. Instead of giant monsters or over-the-top action, the game focuses on a quiet rural town hiding something deeply wrong beneath the surface. The atmosphere leans heavily into isolation, paranoia, and psychological horror rather than constant chaos. Gameplay focuses on exploration, puzzle solving, and survival elements while moving through forests, empty homes, and forgotten locations around the town. The developers are clearly aiming for a slow-burn horror experience, where tension comes from the environment and uncertainty instead of non-stop jump scares. The story follows a woman returning to her hometown after years away, only to find the town almost abandoned and filled with strange behavior, disturbing visions, and signs that something terrible happened long ago. The deeper she investigates, the more reality itself begins to feel unstable.
You're fucked now!
Today.
Let's get you fixed.
Lines went into the gap in letter. That's rolling.
Gothic 1 Remake is bringing back one of the most influential cult RPGs from the early 2000s, but now rebuilt with modern visuals and updated gameplay systems. The game returns players to the Valley of Mines, a brutal prison colony surrounded by a magical barrier where criminals, mercenaries, and factions fight for power, while dangerous creatures roam outside the camps. The remake is being developed by Alchemia Interactive under THQ Nordic, and the team has been very open about trying to preserve what made the original special instead of completely changing it. That means the world is still designed around player freedom, dangerous exploration, and factions that react to your decisions. Gameplay keeps the classic RPG structure, where players slowly build their character from a weak prisoner into someone powerful enough to survive the colony. Combat, crafting, exploration, and faction choices all play a major role, but the remake also modernizes controls, animations, and environmental detail using Unreal Engine 5.
And yet, instinct whispers that those cast aside will shape their days to come. A colony in perpetual conflict, so divided, so full of contradictions. Those who follow the new god speak of salvation, but faith may have an even grimmer future in store.
Jet lag. Gets me every time.
She's not your friend, Bond. She's an asset.
With respect, Mom. To hell with that.
Tell me, what do you do, James?
Lately, headhunting.
007 First Light finally gives us a brand new James Bond game, but this time, the focus is on a much younger 007 before he fully becomes the legendary agent everyone knows. Instead of starting with an experienced super spy, the story follows Bond during the early stage of his MI6 career while he's still learning, making mistakes, and earning his reputation. The project is being developed by IO Interactive, the studio behind the Hitman series, which honestly makes a lot of sense for a Bond game. Their experience with stealth, disguises, social infiltration, and open-ended mission design already has people curious about how they'll handle the 007 formula. Right now, official gameplay details are still limited, but the game is confirmed to be a third-person action-adventure experience with a strong focus on espionage and cinematic storytelling. Early information suggests players will travel across multiple locations around the world while taking on dangerous missions connected to Bond's rise inside MI6.